attending and also trying to emote towards Juliet at the time to talk of my undying love. When one of my feet missed one of the rungs, sort of swung through and straight through a plywood pillar. Unfortunately, my foot remained in the plywood pillar. At this stage, things are not looking good, and the 200 schoolgirls in the front 10 rows of the theatre are beginning to titter. So then, as I tried to extricate myself, I actually lost my grip entirely and went backwards and was left hanging upside down. One foot still on the pillar, one foot around the rope ladder, puffy shirt over the head, tights, bad look. And at this point, the 200 schoolgirls in the front 10 rows were, excuse my French, kissing. So that was the end of my career as an actor. I never ventured back there again, and an arts administrator was born. But really, theatre was the first calling, and even though I went to the Adelaide Festival Centre to work there, personally doing anything that anybody would give me to do. And there were heady days. Anthony Steele was the director of the Brookman Festival and the Festival Centre at that point, so I learned the beat of Anthony. And as time went by, I moved on to programming, which is, on one hand, you could say it's just the best job you can get in the world because you get paid to certainly there was a sense running through the period when the Adelaide Festival stood peerless on the national scene, and through the 70s and 80s where there were things happening here that really weren't happening elsewhere in the country. And I think the way that we can achieve that is not necessarily by volume. It's really about the very specific quality of what we can achieve. And State Theatre Company, that's it's a really tough business that winners are the strong and the weak. So it's very important that we provide opportunities for those people who are not going to get away and see that work, who find it even difficult, to pay the price of a ticket to go and see some of the extraordinary international work that comes into the Adelaide Festival. We need to provide those opportunities for interchange. So those are some of the kind of influences that come to bear. The new workforce there, we talked before about the development. Interestingly, the brand new piece from Caleb Lewis, a young Adelaide writer, that has actually already been in development for a year and a half and was commissioned at State Theatre. So Claudia and I were absolutely delighted that was sitting there ready to go. It's a piece called Maggie Stone, which will feature the wonderful actress Chris McQuaid. Last scene, I think, here in When the Rain Stops Falling, but before that, Cloud Street. So that's one of our new pieces of work, and then there's another fantastic new piece of Australian work from a young writer called Rick Callaghan, not a local, but first produced this year by Sydney's Bellway Theatre. An opportunity where we get to bring what I would regard as the best play by a young writer that's been premiered this year, pretty much hot off the press. Not a premiere, but at least we've had the chance to see that one really works. And then obviously the company has got to be involved in the classics, because the reason they're classics is because they just speak to us year after year, decade after decade. And whether it's Shakespeare or Ibsen, it's an absolute requirement for a company like ours that there's some of it there. So we have the comedy of errors from Shakespeare. Ibsen, we have Hedda Gabler, which is, I think, one of the great and most contrary roles that you can imagine. It's a role that every young actress aspires to play in the way in which actors might aspire to play some of the great Shakespearean characters, whether that's Hamlet or Romeo even. This is one that the best young actress of the generation will play with any luck. I was lucky enough to be working at Sydney Theatre Company when Cate Blanchett took on Hedda Gabler in 1984, and William toured that production to the Brookman Academy of Music in New York. And so I know that the play itself, inside out, creates this whirlwind of a character, Hedda Gabler, who is a strong and difficult woman living in a time when it was really difficult to be strong and difficult. And we have in this production, and it really should be played by